Thanks for watching the Carolina Justice Report. I'm Rainee Romero, and today we're talking all about Rockstar Cheer. Thanks for joining us. I'm here with attorneys Justin Lovely and Amy Lawrence. How's it going, guys?
Hey, Rainee.
Good. So it's a little bit of a crazy subject today. I think a lot of us have heard about Rockstar Cheer and Scott Foster, which is the owner of that. Amy, tell us a little bit about what's going on.
So Rockstar Cheer was like the preeminent cheering academy, I guess, gym up in the upstate. And it was multiple gyms, so it was like a franchise. And we got word that like at the end of August, only 23rd, 24th, that Scott Foster, the owner of that gym, had killed himself, self-inflicted gunshot wound. Found him in a forest, a state park, and they ruled it a suicide. Mm-hmm. And along with that came word that he was being investigated by the FBI for human trafficking and sexual assault.
Wow.
Of children. And so it's just shockwaves.
Yeah.
You know, I think about my niece, all my friends whose kids are in these cheerleading programs and all that other stuff. And essentially what they're saying is that, you know, it wasn't just Rockstar. It was all these other cheerleading entities that were involved. And essentially, you know, when you think about it, like my nieces, they do these competitive cheer stuff. All these places are like out of state, right? When they go to these competitions, most of the parents can't come because can't really afford. I mean, it's already so expensive to do these kind of programs. They're sending their kids off hoping that they're going to be taken care of and watched after and all that stuff. But it's come to light that, you know, these kids were being essentially human trafficked.
Yeah, provided alcohol,
yeah,
drugs.
Sexually assaulted, which is just like every parent's worst nightmare.
Yeah, yeah. And when you say upstate, this was in Greenville, South Carolina, was where Scott Foster killed himself. It's where he lives, and it's where the original Rockstar Cheer was, which now they just announced has been indefinitely shut down.
Thank God.
But he does have other locations in other states as well.
And it's also part of like a bigger network.
Yeah.
And that's what we learned. They filed a lawsuit within a week of his death with multiple plaintiffs, multiple children who'd been hurt, molested, sexually assaulted, all those things.
Male and female.
And female. Yep. And, you know, matter of fact, Justin he pulled up the complaint, and it's insanity would be the word.
So the complaint is what? Who?
The lawsuit.
The lawsuit.
The papers.
And so that details kind of everything.
Yeah, all the allegations.
Filed.
Yeah.
It was just filed on these certain victims, survivors that are going to start this process. But I think it's funny that you're not hearing about this in the news, right? We're only hearing about it during like Fitz News, like the only media outlet.
That's true, yeah.
It's kind of bizarre to me.
Right.
I think everybody would pick this up, but they're going to have to pick it up now because this lawsuit was filed. But.
Now, who is the lawsuit against? Since Scott is dead.
That's what's really insane because of what they're alleging. It's a lot of entities.
Yeah, so you've got, I'll just read them off. Varsity Brands LLC. So I guess there must be some kind of crazy corporate structure, and it's obviously there's a civil conspiracy cause of action too, so that's why they're naming all these. Varsity Spirit LLC, Varsity Brands Holding Company LLC, All Star Federation, Charles Bank Capital Partners, Bain Capital LP, Rockstar Cheer and Dance, Scott Foster, his estate, Kathy Foster, his wife, and other unknown defendants, because obviously through discovery, they're going to dig up more information.
Wow.
What I think is crazy, so what we know is that we've got All Star Cheer that was owned by the Fosters, but we also know that, scroll down, babe. We know that Varsity Corporation was just bought out for like billions of dollars by Bain Capital, because it's one of the largest hedge funds and investors in the whole world. And so they had purchased this. So it's corporate entities are really insane what they've alleged here.
Interesting. Yeah. So Justin, did you want to read a little bit
about
what
it says? Yeah, let me just go through because there's so many entities that they're making these allegations against that we think will be involved. Let me just read through here. Cut me off because it's a long complaint, but basically, the intro that for over 20 years, Scott Foster operated, managed, and coached young cheerleaders from across the U.S. On August 22nd, he died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound near his home in Greenville. At the time, Foster, along with his wife, Kathy Foster, were the owners of a preeminent cheerleading gym and coaching empire in the upstate South Carolina. Mr. Foster had recently learned of an investigation against him by the Department of Homeland Security related to allegations that he was sexually abusing underage athletes, as well as taking underage athletes across state lines for the purposes of engaging in sex.
Children. So let's just be clear here. We're talking about children.
So that's human trafficking. Foster's death opened a deluge of allegations against not only Scott Foster, but also his wife, Kathy Foster, their gym, Rockstar Greenville, and its affiliated Rockstar entities, as well as Varsity Spirit LLC, its affiliated companies, its parent company, Bain Capital, and its governing body, United States All-Star Federation, USASF, and all those people are the defendants. Upon information and belief, according to this complaint, at all times relevant, defendants Varsity Spirit, Bain Capital, and USASF established a competitive environment soliciting young athletes to cross state lines with minimal parental or adult supervision to converge at pre-scheduled locations where the athletes would then be exposed to drugs, alcohol, and the predatory conduct by adults, including coaches and choreographers, all while publicly representing that defendants were providing a culture of safety at these same events.
This is terrible.
It's the sickest shit I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Upon information and belief, the Foster defendants, defendant Rockstar, and other gyms and coaches were empowered and placed in positions of trust and authority by defendants Varsity Spirit, Bain Capital, and USASF, all while defendants knew or should have known that these same coaches and gyms were pervasively abusing their athletes. The scheme to anoint specific coaches and disregard safety protocols was part of an elaborate plan to create a pipeline of young athletes, each of whom represented a significant stream of revenue for the varsity defendants' business worth billions of dollars. The defendants together and individually have created, organized, and propagated a system of young athlete abuse against innocent victims, including the Jane Doe and John Doe plaintiffs in this complaint.
I mean, this is kind of stuff that like breaks my heart.
Yeah, I mean, and there's just so many questions too, and I don't think it came out that he left any kind of suicide note or anything behind, right? I haven't heard anything about that.
We haven't yet, but who knows? I mean, that wouldn't be a part of anything that we would know of yet, unless it gets leaked to the press.
Well, and I'm wondering, how much was his wife involved in this, or did she even know any of this? He had a wife and I think a daughter, which just makes it all the more gross. I mean, I don't know. When I was looking into this a little bit, there was pictures of him just kind of like partying with the kids and stuff. And so I almost wonder if I don't know. These things, I feel like they have steps and they just get worse and worse and worse. And it kind of grooms the kids to think like,
well, that's exactly
this is okay. Doing. He's just being like our friend. Oh, he's getting us alcohol because our parents won't let us do that, or whatever. So woohoo. And then it kind of is like step further, to where these kids don't even know what's right and wrong anymore,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what they're doing. We do a lot of sexual assault cases in this office, and, that's what we see time and time again. So he tries to be cool, right? And he wants them to feel comfortable, so he gives them a little bit of alcohol. It's grooming at its finest. And he makes them feel like they're adults, even though they're not, even though they're just kids. And so it's like these little things happen, and before you know it, everybody's, they couldn't consent if they wanted to. You know what I mean? They're children.
Yeah.
And so, but that's part of this grooming process, making them feel like they're part of the team. And if you don't do this kind of stuff, you're not part of the team. Well, that's the whole thing. And then these parents are spending on average of $20,000 a year, put their kids into this program, and for them to go and do all the stuff, and it's just,
let me go more into the complaint.
Breaks my heart.
So the competitive cheer world, this is coming from the complaint. In competitive cheer, athletes perform routines lasting for 2 minutes and 30 seconds that incorporate gymnastics, tumbling, stunts, pyramids, tossing, cheer, and dance routines, all set to music. In traditional sideline cheer, athletes perform in support of some other sport. In competitive cheer, the athletes performing the routines are the main event. Competitive cheer requires an extreme amount of commitment from athletes and their families, requiring near constant training or cross-training and frequent competition travel through multiple seasons throughout the year. This level of dedication is costly. A single season can, at a minimum, cost between $3,000 and $7,000 per team. Some families spend $20,000 or more for transportation, lodging, and the entrance fees at these multiple competitions they attend throughout the year. It's estimated that about 4 million athletes participate in competitive cheer.
Wow.
Cheer competitions are highly structured events where teams are judged against one another. They are held locally, regionally, nationally, and even worldwide, requiring frequent travel by the athletes. These events are hosted and conducted under the guidance and certification of various companies in the U.S. At all times relevant to this complaint, the varsity defendants have been one of the largest purveyors of these competitions and camps. The varsity defendants utilize defendant USASF as its governing entity, including requiring each competitor at a varsity competition to purchase a USASF membership. In all-star competitive cheer, athletes join teams that are affiliated with a private gym that has been certified by defendant USASF as meeting certain standards related to the credentials of its coaches, and specifically warranting that these coaches have been determined to be safe for work around child athletes.
Yeah, that's what because that's what they're promoting, that, oh, we're safe, we've done background checks, they work with children all day long.
Well, and they've been around for like 15 years or something.
Right.
So people assume that they're credible due
Yeah,
to that
and you
too.
think that they're doing all the background checks and doing all the things. It's just, and they knowing the whole time what
Yeah.
they're doing. It just,
You know, the cheer world in general, I feel like there's more and more coming up about this happening in the cheer world. I mean, we know that this happened on the Olympic side with the one doctor that was, you know,
USA Gymnastics?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
USA Gymnastics, who's
NASA.
serving
Yeah.
however long, 40 years or something like that for his crimes. And I don't know if anybody has seen, you know, Netflix came out with a show called Cheer.
Yeah.
And that was a huge, you know, popular show, hugely popular show. And it came out in the middle of that season that one of those, everyone's like sweetheart on that show popped for allegations, and nobody could believe it.
he actually pled guilty.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
pled
and he's doing
guilty. His
time
own
now.
teammates couldn't believe it because he was like the
Soliciting
one that
children.
was so sweet and kind to everybody on the show. Everyone was just shocked, but it just goes to show, I mean, how well do you really know these people? And, you know, how often does this happen in the world of cheer? I mean, it's just scary. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that we all want to believe that, like, how could this happen in cheer? But I think what we haven't really come to terms with as a society, and especially as Americans, is that this happens in every gym.
True.
You know what I mean?
yeah.
In every kind of sport. It's happening everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Children are being groomed and sexualized and everything in between.
Right.
And
Yep.
until we start fighting for kids, for that not to happen,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I just had a talk with my mom, who's a guardian ad litem in North Carolina, and she said, Amy, in North Carolina, and I would say in South Carolina too, in the majority of the country, actually all the country, you know, animals have more rights than children. And I say that because you will get more time for abusing a dog, and not that you should do that either, but you get more time for abusing an animal and a quick, you know, somebody pops to it. But if you call DSS or CPS, it can take weeks for anybody to do something, if they do anything at all. And it's just,
Why is that? Is it the process, or are they just trying to be extra thorough that it actually did happen, or why?
no, I just think that children are not valued. And I think a big part of it is that the majority of the world has already been molested or raped themselves, sexually assaulted in some way. You know, the numbers say that 1 in 4 people are sexually assaulted in a lifetime, but the reality is it's 1 in 2. Those are just the ones that are willing to tell you, you know what I mean, and admit it. And, you know, I sit down with sexual assault survivors every day, and one of the things they say is a lot of times they'll tell their parents, specifically their mother, and their mom doesn't do anything about it.
Wow.
And I said they were molested too. That's always my initial reaction. I was like, somebody did that to them. And the look on their face of like, how did you know? And I said, because if they admit what happened to you wasn't okay, then they have to, what happened to them isn't okay. And they're a victim too. And that's really hard to stomach. And this is like the circle of violence against women that we see day in and day out. And it usually starts, you know, at a very young age. We all deserve better. Everybody deserves better.
Yeah. Man, it's terrible. That gives me goosebumps. But yeah, this is a bigger issue, right? This is
Yeah,
just an
it's like,
example of a bigger
this is-
issue.
This is just one piece of it. And until we're like willing to like take off the blinders and say, this isn't just about All-Star Cheer, it's about all children. This is happening everywhere you can imagine. And we're all willing, everybody's like, I want to see Epstein's list, right? But like, what are we doing? I agree. I want to see Epstein's list too. But like, also like, what are we doing on a micro level to be able to protect children in our society, in our own communities? And I think that's really what we need to be looking at. You know what I mean? Because this is happening in everybody's backyard. It's happening in daycares, it's happening in schools, it's happening in gyms, it's happening everywhere. And until we like figure out like what we can do on a micro level in our own community to protect kids and what we're willing to do to go to the mat for them, then we've got a losing battle.
What can people do? Do you have any like
I mean, I think you have to be
recommendations?
super hyper aware. I think we have to talk about it. You know what I mean? The great thing about this is that we're sitting here having a discussion because these are the kind of things that you don't talk about in mixed company. And most of the time, you don't even talk about it in your own home.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the minute
needs
we
to be
start
talked about.
talking about it and making it a conversation, because that of which we do not acknowledge cannot be changed. And so we have to start talking about it at the very least. It has to be something that we discuss, and that when you see something, you do something. You know what I mean? It might feel wrong. It might feel like you're being a Karen, but whatever that looks like, because at the end of the day, children have to be protected. So we have to do what we can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's part of the reason that's what we do these
Right.
video casts for, right?
Yeah.
The news, our local news is not picking this up. Fitz News is the only one in South Carolina picking it up. They'll all eventually pick it up, but we've got to get the word out, just like Amy said.
Sure. Sure.
You know.
Was there anything else on there that you wanted to read?
it goes on and on. I mean, it tells about the the corporate structure, how everybody's going to be held liable through the conspiracy. We'll put this on our website. We're going to make a webpage about this, and so anybody who wants to read this complaint, we'll make it available. It's public record. It's federal court filing.
So what happens now? All these lawsuits are being filed. What does this look like moving forward?
So I guess everybody's going to get served, right? So they filed it. Now they have to serve each entity, and then they'll engage in written discovery. And then from there, they'll start doing depositions. And then from there, I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of stuff coming out from that.
So we see this kind of going to trial maybe years from now, or how?
If it goes to, I have a feeling this will not go to trial. That they will try to like make a very big settlement very quickly, because that's some very deep pockets in those defendants, and that's a very big business. I mean, when you've got parents spend as much as $20,000 a pop, a year for one kid, and we have hundreds of kids in a gym, 4 million families for years. I mean, I think that they're going to try to keep this hush hush. They're going to try to settle it quickly. And if something's happening that doesn't feel right with your kid, or something has happened, call us. We'll help you. And it's like we can't do anything about Scott Foster, right?
Right.
The good Lord will deal with him and is dealing with him. But the only way that we can like punish them is to bring this lawsuit, because that's the only way to like incite change. And we've talked about this before. I'd like to put everybody in jail, but that's really not the reality of life. And I can't put big corporations in jail. And the FBI will do what they can to arrest who they can. But there will be so many that they'll go, and the corporate structure still stays. And then there'll just be some other slime ball that just pops right into their position and does the same shit. So the only way, sorry, I'm getting all fired up. The only way that we can incite change is to hit them in the pocketbook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can't put them in jail, but I can hit them in their pocketbook hard enough that they will think twice before they ever do this kind of thing again, or let it go on.
And there will be people probably going to jail through this.
I hope so.
Absolutely. And don't think this is just isolated to Greenville. This
No,
is a statewide, this is a nationwide thing.
Right.
So I'm sure it's down here in Myrtle Beach and Charleston. It's going to come up, and we're here at Lowly Law Firm. We're here to help.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. When we talked about the original Rockstar Cheer closing indefinitely, and then I think the other franchises are changing their names to not have Rockstar included in those anymore. But
I mean, don't we have those? We have those huge competitions here at the convention center.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They take over our town over the summer.
Yeah, we have a
several
lot
times.
of cheer. We even just local cheer businesses. We have a ton, at least like 5.
Yeah. And this is what we're going to hear like from all these parents, and it's going to make me really angry. Oh, it's just a few bad apples, right? But I want them to realize like that's not the reality of life. So be hyper vigilant. Your kid might be safe today, but that doesn't mean they're going to be safe tomorrow. So take it with a grain of salt, but be hyper vigilant when you are sending your babies off for strangers to watch them.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had in our own community, we've had a dance place where there have been sexual allegations of children being groomed and molested and sexually assaulted. We've had it in a taekwondo or judo or something like that, a karate thing. I mean, it's happening everywhere.
Multiple daycare. It's not necessarily sexual, but abuse. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, be hyper vigilant. Don't think that this is just an isolated incident up there, right? We all want to believe that like this doesn't happen in our backyard. It happens up there in Greenville or wherever, but like this is happening in your own backyard, and you have to be hyper vigilant, because if you're not going to protect your kids, no one is.
Yeah. Yeah. For folks that are local or statewide or whatever, and they want to come and chat, what would you like them to know of how to get a hold of you or whatever?
Yeah, call us at the office. I mean, even if I'm not there and I'm running in between court, I will call you on my cell phone, 843-839-4111, and we'll help you in any way we can. Whether that's a lawsuit or just holding your hand through the criminal procedure, whatever you want us to do, we can do it.
Yeah,
Because that's where our heart is.
love it. Anything else? Any final thoughts on this?
I'm sure we'll be filming some
My
updates
chest
as more information, comes out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, stick with us. There's a lot more that's going to come out with this story, so we'll keep you updated. As Justin said, we'll put this up on our website, justiceslovely.com. We are everywhere that you consume your media, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, so you can look us up anywhere you'd like. Ask us any questions you may have, and definitely give us comments so we can address it in the next one. Carolina Justice Reports drop every Tuesday at 2 p.m. We'll see you on the next one.
When life gets ugly, justice is lovely. The love